Good day and thanks for joining us. I'm Anthika Rasava reporting from the heart of the Greek capital, where a tumultuous week of protests have begun today. State teachers are leading this barrage of strikes, with university staff, hospital personnel, tax officials and lawyers joining in on strike action beginning Tuesday. The country's civil sector will come to a screeching two-day halt beginning Wednesday, and all of this because state-paid workers are mad at government designs to reshuffle some 25,000 civil servants, closing down state schools, state entities, and also preparing to axe some 4,500 civil servants by the end of the year. The government sees these reforms as part of its attempts to overhaul what it calls a costly, obese, and corrupt civil sector. Protesters say that's all diplomatic language for added austerity Greeks can no longer take 4 years into a crisis that has eaten at least 25% of their incomes and sent more than 1.4 million Greeks to unemployment lines. Well, I'm joined today by George Georgopoulos, a leading scholar at the Athens-based Eliamet think tank. And George, I'd like to start off, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to start off with the main opposition leader, Alexis Tsipras. We heard him over the weekend coming out very, very strong, supporting these protests, effectively telling voters to ditch this path of recovery and effectively take to the streets to topple the government. Do you see things going this way?
Mr. Tsipras attempted to persuade public opinion that he can offer an alternative. In my opinion, however, it is very hard to believe what he was saying because he hasn't negotiated with the creditors so far. So we have paid a heavy price for populism, Greek populism, and I believe that Mr. Tsipras is following the same paradigm.
Well, I want again to zero in on Alexis Tsipras, the radical leftist leader, who is obviously, according to polls, the prime minister in waiting. And do you think he's managed to articulate a message and a credible alternative which Greeks are now buying into? Or do you think that he is still seen by the average Greek as a protest vote, and therefore that 29% that he still has, that he's gaining in these polls, is more protest than a true policy statement?
I think that the main reason people support Syriza is that they want to protest against the bailout and the austerity measures which are applied by the government of both the Conservative and the Socialist Party, and that Mr. Tsipras hasn't offered yet a sincere alternative on how Greeks can get out of the crisis. And the example of Cyprus in March 2013 can show that practically there is no alternative.
Right. Well, these protests obviously are building up, and they will be building up in the coming weeks, and it does spell trouble for the government. Some even say that it's testing its ability to keep going with austerity and its financial policies. But does it not spell trouble also for international lenders? And could they, and should they perhaps, start showing some easing up on austerity and giving some slack?
Well, in theory, that kind of rhetoric poses a threat and a problem for creditors. Nevertheless, the lenders of Greece have an experience over the last 3 years that the opposition party does not support the governmental policy. So I believe that we are experiencing the same line right now, and that the government itself can make it, even if Mr. Tsipras strongly opposes the plans of the bailout.
So you think that lenders will be as tough as they were before and that they won't cut some slack?
I don't think so, because the Greek government has already signed a few agreements, and it is within the framework of its financial obligations to implement the reforms, so there is no other way.
But they've said that, we made a mistake. We were too tough in the beginning.
Well, they recognize that kind of mistake a little bit late, but on the other hand, it's also the fault of the Greek government that didn't implement the necessary reforms, and that it had to apply additional austerity measures instead of going on with structural reforms. So it's also a responsibility of the Greek government.
George, thanks very much for your insight. That's it for today. Join us here again tomorrow.